Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So finally, after 8 years of grinding in real estate, after scaling up to 90 units at one point and now sitting at 54 units, I finally have clarity. And why I wanted to talk about this is it's very counterintuitive. So you would think somebody who's disciplined to buy real estate, work your W-2, save money, keep your expenses low, uh, have margin to invest in real estate and scale to 90 units would have a lot of discipline and would have a lot of clarity and would have goals set in mind. But from my experience, I was just very opportunistic in terms of buying real estate. So if you look at my portfolio, it's a little bit all over the place because I was just trying to take advantage of the opportunities that I had to me at the time. So my first property I bought in the Bay Area, I literally bought it in the Bay Area because I wanted to buy a home that was $800,000 and put 10% down. So I just looked at every city. I grew up in Milpitas, too expensive there. I looked in San Jose, too expensive. I looked in Fremont, way too expensive. Looked in Pleasanton, too expensive. Dublin, too expensive. And then now I looked in Livermore and I found property that was my price point of around 800. So literally, I'd even probably never been to Livermore buying a house there. So I just kind of bought that thinking that I just would live there for the rest of my life. I would house hack it. And then eventually, when I had kids and a family, I just would like move those tenants out and then live in that house for the rest of my life and then just work to pay it off. That was literally my mindset back in 2017. But I ended up getting a new job in San Francisco. And I didn't want to make the commute from Livermore to San Francisco. It's almost like an hour and a half commute each way with traffic. You have to cross the Bay Bridge. And I didn't want to do that commute. So I just literally bought a duplex in San Francisco, kind of South San Francisco. And, thought I was going to live there for the rest of my life too, but ended up, moving to SoCal where I'm at today. So, I just took advantage of the opportunity I had in my hand, right? Like, if you look at my single family homes, it's a little bit all over the place. And even when I went out of state, so when I went out of state finally, and I went out of state because, when I moved to SoCal, I was managing my rentals in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, which was 400 miles away. And I was like, well, I don't see these properties anyways. So what difference is it if I can manage a property from 400 miles away? Why not, 2,000 miles away or whatever, something far away? And that's when I looked into Huntsville, right? And now I own 3 there, but I've still never been to Huntsville today. And because I just happened to know about the market because my cousin and my dad work in aerospace, and they go there often when they're working, and it's something that I've been like just hearing, and I almost became an aerospace engineer myself because my family's in it, and I knew nothing about Huntsville, never been there, but once I kind of like saw my cousin going there, my parents going there a lot, I was just like, okay, let me research this further and realize that wow, I could buy a house for 250K to 300 and it rents for 2,000. That's way better than California. In California, you're going to spend $500,000 for a condo, a 1-bedroom condo, and it rents for maybe $2,000. So I thought it was a no-brainer to go, to Huntsville. And then if you look at where I bought in Oklahoma, why did I choose Oklahoma? I had a really good property manager there that I just happened to meet. That's it. So if you look at everything, it was very opportunistic, like not as goal-oriented as I or disciplined or as focused as I thought I was, right? But and even at one point, I had a mobile home park. If you follow my channel, like I sold that for a loss, and I'm still carrying a note to this day on that mobile home park. So all my purchases, if I were to sum it up, it was very opportunistic. That's it. I just was trying to get whatever I could get and strike at the opportunity that was presented to me. So not much clarity, honestly, when I was scaling to 90 doors. But obviously, as I sold my mobile home park for a loss, as I've um, kind of like not really bought real estate, I'd say since 2020, when I stopped, 2022. And I bought my primary here I'm sitting in 2024, and I bought 2 more in Huntsville in 2025. But it took me buying the 2 in Huntsville to kind of realize that, wait a second, like, how can I optimize this portfolio? Like, all I am doing is scaling, growing more units, and it's a vanity metric at this point. Well, how can I simplify this portfolio, right? If you look at my portfolio, I self-manage like all the ones in California. I have 2 apartments in Oklahoma, 2 different property managers, and I have one property manager for my 3 in Huntsville. So I deal with about 3 people. And obviously, if you deal with 3 people, it requires more effort, requires more work. It's not simple. So kind of the clarity that I've gained recently, if you've been seeing my videos, is kind of more simplification. So like keeping it more simple and probably deleveraging and having less debt, right? And this takes kind of getting slapped in the face a little bit, right? If I'm being honest, because times are tougher now in 2025. Maybe it's not a full recession yet. Maybe it's going to be worse. Maybe it'll get better. Who knows? Interest rates are still a little bit high. So it's very uncertain, right? But all I know is that insurance goes up, labor to repair stuff goes up, property tax has been going up, and tenants' rents have been stagnant, if not, flat or going down a little bit. And if there's an increase in evictions in my portfolio, and there's repairs are more expensive as well. So my rents are staying flat or going down, and my expenses are going up. So overall, you're going down. So being as someone who invested in 2017, I never experienced a downturn yet, right? Versus a lot of people actually, if you start investing in 2009, you never experienced a downturn in what is that, like 14 years or 16 years of investing without experiencing one downturn. So now that we're kind of seeing it turn worse, I'm not sure if it's a recession yet, but it's turning worse. It's giving me a lot of clarity, right? So number one, it's prioritizing simplification. Number two is obviously debt pay down. So it's really looking at your portfolio and then seeing what moves you want to make, right? So obviously, if you own enough real estate, like myself, I'm lucky enough where I can sell some to pay off some. It's just a matter of which one makes the most sense for me to sell, which one makes the most sense for me to keep. So for me to do that, I need to probably run numbers. Like if I were to sell this to pay this off, or sell this to pay this one off, like what would the numbers look like, and what would my management look like for this, right? So it could be me selling my apartments in Oklahoma and using that to pay off my ones in California, which I self manage, right? It's not that hard to self manage. In California, if you have good tenants, and most of the times it's just handyman repair request, right? Oh, toilet's broken. Okay, I call the handyman. Oh, this window's broken. Call the handyman, right? It's pretty simple, to be honest. So, like what does that look like, right? So, my 20 unit, probably for sure I'm gonna sell that. My 26 unit, I've been calling that my LeBron James, my Stephen Curry, my real estate portfolio. It's probably worth the most between the two apartments. And obviously, if I were to sell my 26 unit, I'd get a lot more interest versus probably my 20 unit, being honest. But I could sell that and then, maybe pay off some of my ones I own in California, right? Or 1031 exchange that and into a bunch of properties in Huntsville, Alabama that are owned free and clear, right? So there's a lot of optionality with that. And then, I for sure want to pay off my primary residence, right? That's definitely something I want to do because I want to lower my personal expense, and that's what I've learned to be the easiest path to financial freedom is having the lowest expense possible. And having a paid off house is probably your biggest expense. So having that paid off will make it a lot easier for you to retire, right? And I live in Los Angeles, which is an expensive market. And obviously, if I move to somewhere cheaper, like Vegas, I could pay off a house for like 400, 500K, something that's like brand new. So that's what I kind of been doing now. Like, yes, I just bought two, but then after I bought this two, I quickly realized that, wow, I need to just look at my portfolio, like run the numbers and see which ones that make sense for me to sell, which ones make sense for me to keep. So obviously the easiest ones are maybe if I sell the ones that I own out of state, use that to pay off all my properties in California, right? And then see how that goes. And the cash flow from that would be pretty strong, right? So, I my let's see, I own one in Orange County. The rent's about 4,000. That's the one where I want to build ADUs on. And if I were to build the ADUs, I think the rent's gonna be about 6,000 between the 3 bedroom, 2 bath in the backyard and the garage, which is converted to 1 bedroom. So just that property alone, assuming I have two ADUs, it's $10,000 a month, which is like pretty good, right? And then if I were to pay off my first home I bought, which has the lowest loan because it's had the most pay down and I owned it the longest, the loan's roughly around I think 550K. So if I paid that off, that one only gets about 4,000 bucks. So if you do the math, it's close to 50K, assuming it's paid off. And then obviously, if I pay off my primary here, which I owe about 850 on, I would save me a $5,500 per month mortgage, right? So that's owned free and clear. So if you think about just the property with the ADUs, if that's paid off, that's 10K roughly, and then the other property, it's another 4,000. So that's just 14K in expenses. And with a paid off primary, which is only gonna cost me 2,000 bucks a month. So can you imagine that, right? 14K, very little debt, and I have about 2,000 going to my expenses, just my living expense, and then I have 12,000 left over for other life expenses like health insurance, kids, activities, whatever else you need to do, food, rent or food, whatever you need to do, right? And then so that could be an option for me as well. Or if I own if I own my San Francisco duplex free and clear, that one has about 850K of debt still on it because I bought it for 1.1 million, put 10% down. That one it does get about 8,000 bucks a month in rent, but I do cover the utilities because it's kind of a makeshift duplex, and I cover the utilities on that property because I don't have it split. But that one's paid off too. Then it's really about that's another 8,000 bucks, right? Almost paid off. So that's probably the least headache way where I have no property managers. It's just my properties in California and they're owned like free and clear, right? If I decide to go down that route, you know. So, or another thing I can do too is obviously in Huntsville, Alabama, you can get a home cash for about 260K and it rents for 2150, right? I could sell some in California and own a bunch of these, free and clear, right? So let's just say I sold my 26 unit. I have it valued at 1.6 million. My debt's about 400K on that property. So if I sold it, I'd pocket about $1.2 million. Yes, there's probably like taxes and depreciation recapture, or if I do a 1031 exchange, I'd have about $1.2 million of equity to buy homes in Huntsville. So that basically me buying, if each one's about 250, what is that off the top of my head? That's about five in Huntsville that you own free and clear. And then they rent for, about 2,100 each, right? So that's another option as well. But that one, I need a property manager. So I have to deal with that, right? Versus self-management, a little bit easier, or it depends how you view it. So kind of with that being said, with this nice pause where I haven't been buying as much and not really, I kind of lost my desire to scale because I kind of felt like I hit my enough. I'm trying to just look at my portfolio and just see, okay, which pieces do I want to sell and which ones do I want to pay off? So I think that's the part that I really have to look at deeply, right? Like which ones do I want to keep, which ones do I want to sell? Like my 26 unit has about 350K of debt, easy to pay that off, right? It's very easy to pay off if I decide to want to keep that asset, right? But when you own like a 26 unit apartment complex, over time, right now it's maybe not much capex, but maybe in, 10 years or 5 years, when things start to break again, that's when it becomes a lot of headache. So something that I have to like really, really consider. And another thing that people don't consider too is, multifamily, like apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage, triple net, they're nice, but they take a long time to sell. Like it took me a year to sell my mobile home park. I anticipate it's probably gonna take me a year to sell my 20 unit at least. But if it's a single family home, they typically sell within like 3 months or 6 months at worst. So single family homes are more liquid because you have more buyers. You have people who want to buy it as their home. You have people who want to buy it as a rental. And most people are comfortable with single family homes. But once you start going to like small apartment complexes, it's a more niche buyer, right? And not as many buyers. And so that's one thing that I never really considered when I went into multifamily, but now I kind of realized that after I've basically tried to sell my mobile home park, and then in the process of trying to sell my 20 unit, and I know it's going to take a long time now. So that's why I'm fortunate. I'm not like desperate to sell it where you're like just losing money every month like I was with my mobile home park. But that's why I started this earlier than sooner. And then, worst case, you get offers. You can say yes or no, right? Like if the offer is great, take it. If the offer is not good, you can keep it. It's really up to you, right? But the key point is you can make the decision once you have that. So why did I share all this? right? So this was kind of my 8-year journey summarized in about, 15 minutes, let's just call it. So during this whole scaling process, I didn't have as much clarity as I thought. I am, for me, for better or for worse, I'm the type to like take action and learn and take action and pivot, right? That's why it seems like I change my mind a lot because I make decisions based on the information that I have with the hand that I currently have, right? But as I get more information, as I get more knowledge, as my wealth situation changes, then what my strategies of real estate or wealth is going to change as well, right? It's just like playing football, right? Like if you have a huge lead, you're not going to take risky plays anymore, right? But in the beginning, you could take a deeper pass or more risky plays because you had nothing to lose. Like when I first got started, out of pharmacy school of 250K student debt, I was like, well, if I fail in real estate, I'm just living back at home again with my pharmacist job that pays well. But now obviously I have something to lose. So, realizing that and then making that pivot. So I would say like it's kind of nice having clarity for the first time, believe it or not, in about 8 years. Like you said, you would assume somebody who scaled to 54 units would have a lot of clarity, would be very like disciplined. But then like I didn't have much clarity looking back, right? And hindsight's always 2020. But my clarity now is like, well, it's become clear to basically take down the table, taking off my primary debt, pay that off, and then maybe paying off other rentals. But just a matter of picking and choosing which rentals do I want to keep, which ones do I want to sell, which ones do I want to pay off, right? And then, so in my next 5 years, what I need to essentially do is figure out which ones to sell, pay off my primary, build 2 ADUs, own those free and clear, and at that point, like I'm probably very, very close to like financial, independence and retiring early from my pharmacist job. Um, and then, at that point, whatever cash flow I get, from my real estate portfolio, it's not going to be pumped into more real estate. It could be pumped into paying down debt. It could be pumped into maybe S&P 500, right? Um, and I don't talk about as much, but I did post a few videos talking about my stock portfolio. And people are surprised because most real estate investors, they just do all real estate and no stocks. I know a lot of people who are like that, but I have about a million plus in just stocks and index funds predominantly. Like if you look at my portfolio, it's Vanguard index funds, only 3 index funds. It's VT Sachs, which is a total US stock market. 70% is in that. 25% is in the international index fund. And then 5% is in bonds, right? That's literally my distribution. And I own some Apple stocks that I bought back in 2013. Obviously it's done well since then. And then I just bought about 8,000 worth of Nvidia stock like recently. So those are only stocks that I own. It's really simple, right? But if you were to take the 4% rule, so what's the 4% rule? If you take 4% of your stock portfolio, that's $40,000 a year. You can comfortably live off $40,000, a year and not touch your principal and have it still grow a little bit. So if my stock portfolio is a million, then I have 40K, which is about, $3,000 a month extra on top of my paid off real estate, right? So this is kind of my financial freedom plan. But realistically for me, I imagine by the time I do step away from W2, I'd probably have closer to 2 million in stocks because now I'm joined with my wife now. So imagine you had $2 million in stocks, 4% rule, that's 80K. That's roughly around, what is that? About $6,000 a month, just from that. And then if you have a paid off house, my living expense is only $2,000 a month to live in LA in a paid off house. It's just property tax, insurance, HOA. And if I had, let's say one property was paid off with ADUs, that's 10K. Another property's paid off, maybe that's another 4K. That's 14K right there. But maybe it's $10,000. You know, if you put 4,000 aside for reserves, so that's 10,000 from real estate, 4% roll in your stocks, that's 16K, right? That's enough for me to live a life. Like my wife and I, we don't live super lavishly. We don't need to spend a lot of money to get a lot of joy in life, right? We prioritize travel, we prioritize experiences, and there's a lot of things that you can do that don't require much money, like spending times with friend and families, just even going for a walk in the park, or just a lot of free events in LA. That's the one perk of living in Los Angeles. So just having that clarity of doing it, and at first when I did real estate, I thought that I really loved real estate, but now that I look back, I just thought that was probably the surest way for me to make money and to build wealth. because I think 90% of the millionaires made their wealth through real estate, right? But I remember like growing up as a kid, like in the 90s, like you thought $1 million was a lot, but if you fast forward today with inflation, I feel like 10 million is the new 1 million, right? Like at least that's how I feel, like in LA, right? So for me, I would probably hit that net worth, not doing much, like just letting my assets compound while I pay off my properties. Like if I just do nothing and things compound, like natural, like I'll hit that. And at that point, it's just like focusing on quality of life, right? And focusing on what gives you the most utility, because you can't take stuff to the grave, right? Like my mom passed away younger at 60. So I'm very aware of like mortality, and I work in a hospital as well. So I'm very aware of like how things can be taken away from you, right? Most people retire at 60. Imagine you're retired and the next day you die, right? It's just like, whoa, that's very humbling. Like what's the point of grinding all that just to pass away only to do that? So it's really that clarity for me. So to kind of summarize it, it's basically which properties am I going to sell to pay off my primary, to pay off some other properties. I'm going to allocate my money towards paying down rentals, or if I make cash flow from rentals, I can throw that money into paying down my properties. And obviously the wild card of the Joker in all this is I don't have kids yet, but once I do, it could be good. They could be healthy. They can be unhealthy, right? They can be cheap. They can be expensive. Who knows, right? You don't know until they come out and you have all that, and it's hard to plan for that stuff. So pretty aware of that. That's probably the only kicker that I'm gonna see. But it became kind of clear to me that my focus now shouldn't be on accumulating assets. I should be focusing on trying to increase my income, right? My active income. So that's why I'm trying to put more into like creating YouTube content. Um, I'm trying to put more into I'm working on becoming a real estate broker. And I want to focus on selling Lennar home new build construction homes in Oklahoma, Alabama, and California. Right. So I want to focus on increasing my active income, and then use that increased active income, still live the same, and use that to pay off my rentals. Use that to invest to invest in index funds. Right. That's all I imagine myself doing, honestly, for the next 5 years, unless YouTube takes off for me and I become the next Graham Stephan, or I become a real estate broker and all of a sudden I'm selling so much real estate, I'm making a million plus in commissions. If that's the case, my strategy will change, right? But based on my current situation, assuming nothing major, that's my plan. So it is nice having clarity. It's just nice being on a path, and then you just follow that path. Like I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but I went to a 5-year program to be a pharmacist out of high school. So it's 2 years undergrad, 3 years of farm school. And what was nice about it is it was hard, it was stressful, but I just knew if I followed this track over 5 years, after 5 years, I'd become a pharmacist. So I kind of feel like I'm on that 5-year track to be financially independent, and I can step away from my W-2 and become work optional, right? Where I can just choose to work, not work because I have to, right? And that was the whole objective of me going to real estate in the first place, because I thought I can for sure make wealth from real estate, and I wasn't confident in my ability to do business at the time, right? Because I didn't really know much about business. The only thing I know about business is my mom owned a dry cleaner for a little bit, didn't make money, and they sold it, right? That's the only experience I had. And 9 out of 10 business owners um, go bankrupt or their business closed down, right? But with social media, you can create a business without much capital. If you become a real estate broker, and I'm not going to have like an office or people underneath me, it's low overhead expense. So it's doing a business that's low overhead expense, but high upside potential. And that's what's nice about the media business. And that's what's nice about being a real estate broker. If I don't own an office, right? It just upside's all there. So having this clarity has been pretty nice. And like I said, it took me 8 years to get here, believe it or not. Because when you're in the grind of scaling real estate, you're not focused on like having clarity. You're just focused on like taking down your deal, stabilizing that deal, and then moving on to the next deal. If I'm being honest, it's like a different hunter's mentality. Like you hunt the first deal, you hunt the second deal, you hunt the next deal. But now it's about like being more methodical with, the moves. So that's why I say like real estate, the first 10 years suck, and I'm on year 8 of 10, right? So I have 2 more years of suck at least, maybe if not more. So anyways, that's kind of the clarity insights I got after owning 54 units for about 8 years now. So let me start looking at answering some questions now. So please drop your questions. I see some in here. So I'm gonna start at the top. So Max, I saw a video. You said you were going to refinance your primary and also pay it off early. Why a refinance? Why not just pay it off? Yeah, Max. So what I want to do is my current loan is 850K, and it's amortized over 30 years. My interest rate is 6.5%. So my monthly payment, including um, PMI, because I put 5% down, is about $5,500 a month. And out of that $5,500 a month, because I only own this loan for less than 2 years, out of that $5,500 a month, $800 goes to principal pay down. The rest, can't do the math off the top of my head, goes to interest. But at a high level, very little principal pay down, right? Like in a whole year, you're paying down at most maybe $10,000. Let's just call it a principal pay down. The rest of your money goes to interest. But if I refinance this into a 20-year term, what it does is I can go from a 6.5%. I'm aiming for 5%. I'm waiting for the 5% interest rate for a 20-year term. So you save money because I'm going from a 6.5% to a 5%. That's easy to understand, right? You're going a lower interest rate. It's going to be cheaper. But if you go from a 30-year term to a 20-year term, you have 20 years to pay it off, so your payments can be higher. But when I did the math, if you take the same loan, 20 amortized over 20 years, 5% interest, my monthly payment is $5,500 a month. So it's the same payment. But the advantage is if you look at the breakdown of the payment, 1,600 goes to principal pay down, the rest goes to interest. So you're having more principal pay down, right? So if I refinance this, it's going to cost me about maybe $3,000 to do it through Charles Schwab because I own my stocks through there. I can basically have double my principal pay down, and I honestly plan on paying this off before 20 years, anyways. Right, so that's why I want to do the refinance first, and then pay it off. Right, like it still kind of makes sense because it only cost me $3,000 to get that loan. And I can't imagine myself paying this off property off maybe at most within 5 years, like 5 to 10 years is kind of my sweet spot. Um, but it's nice to be able to do it while I have a W-2, right? Where I could, pay this down. So that's why I want to refinance. My interest rate's pretty low. Obviously, if I had a, sub 3% interest rate like my other properties, I probably wouldn't do this. But because my interest rate's 6.5, I'm okay giving that up, right? It's not that great, you know. It's not bad, but it's not great. So I do plan on refinancing a 20-year term, and then extra, pay the amount, do extra principal payments if I can afford to, and then eventually, if I sell an asset, pay off this property, right? And then I'll be a debt free. Andrew Paulo, oh, thanks for hopping on again. You talk a lot about selling your California single family homes to pay off your 26 unit. Well, if you sold your 26 unit to pay off your single family homes in California instead. So, actually kind of alluded to this already, but if I sold my 26 unit for about 1.6 million, I have about $400,000 in debt. So I'd pocket about $1.2 million, but then I'd probably pay 25% of this goes away to, property tax or capital gains tax, depreciation recapture. So I'd have about 800K left. That's enough to maybe pay off like probably my first property I bought, which has a loan of 500, and to pay off one of my Alabama properties. So that would be, if I did that, if I paid off my first property, that'd make about $4,000 a month. And then if I paid off my Alabama, it's about 2,000. So it's about $6,000 a month in cash flow. But my 26 unit, on average, averages about, the same amount in terms of cash flow. But I'm banking on the fact that rents go up in Oklahoma, but I haven't seen it yet. It's been stagnant, but it definitely is an option where I could sell my 26 unit, pay off one in California, and a good chunk in another one in California. Or I can 1031 exchange it if I don't want to pay taxes in buying, maybe something cash in California or buying more in Huntsville, right? So it's right now I don't want to sell my 26 unit because it's my LeBron James in my portfolio, my Stephen Curry in my portfolio, but my mind might change, because things happen in the future. But no, it is possible for me to sell that, not deal with a property manager anymore, and then pay off my first rental, and then probably pay off half of another rental in California. So that is a possibility if I want to simplify even further, right? And just own 4 or 5 in California, free and clear, right? So something I'm considering, but I don't know. Right now, I'm just tempted to pay off my 26 unit because the debt's so low on it. It's only 350, and it grosses between 14 to 16K. 16K was at the peak, but I'm hoping that rents go up in Oklahoma over the next 5 years, where, if each unit goes from, by $100 each times 26, that's $2,600 extra in cash flow, right? On that property. But, Oklahoma is a very slow and steady market, so haven't really seen it just yet. But like I said, I'm trying to assess all my portfolios, which one makes sense to sell, which one makes sense to keep, right? Right now, my 26 units on my keep, but I might change my mind later. Um, Also from Andrew, what if you had just 2 California rentals paid off with 2 ADUs paid off? How much cash flow would that get you versus only 26 unit? Oh, so kind of answered that already. So my property with the 2 ADUs, if that's owned free and clear, that's 10K a month. Um, if I sold that, that's 800K. We could finance all that. So that is a good point. So if I sold my 26 unit and I took all the money, which is about 800K, to pay off the main house, that main house has a 2.6% interest rate I got during COVID. I can pay that off, and then I'd have about enough to build the two to about $10,000 a month. And then if you minus the property tax, the insurance on that, I think that'd probably be like maybe 1,000. And then you have some repairs, but that'd be about $9,000 a month in cash flow, which is better than my 26 unit. So point taken there. So it could be a possibility for me to sell my 26 unit. I know if I list that one, I know that one will get a lot of interest for sure, especially because it's Oklahoma City. So if I did sell that and I were to pay off that property, that's 10K a month in positive cash flow, and I can take that positive cash flow to dump my primary residence here to pay that off. So very fortunate that I have a lot of optionalities, and my 26 unit is doing very well for me. Let's see here. Have you had any horrible tenant stories? So yeah, I have a whole video talking about all my crazy tenants. I'll talk about one in my mobile home park when I owned it. So I had a mobile home park, and I had a tenant in there, and her name was Big Mama. And I didn't give her this name. This was told to me by my property manager, but she was a pretty influential figure within the mobile home park. And she basically, if she paid rent, people would pay rent. If she didn't pay rent, no one would pay rent. So they kind of followed Big Mama's lead. And what's kind of crazy is usually she didn't pay rent, if I'm being honest. So a lot of people would follow her. And what happened was I think we hired a contractor. And then in mobile home parks, it's very common that as part of compensation to the contractor, you give him a place to stay in a mobile home, right? So he stayed there. He helped fix up the properties. Probably wasn't doing bad or stealing from me. Probably all the above. But basically, he started, I think, having like getting along with Big Mama, and basically getting really close to her. And then she introduced him to someone else that lived in the community, right? So he basically became friends with Big Mama, and then she introduced him to someone else. But this person was married, but he didn't know she was married. And then they were having like, to keep this PG, sexual intercourse, or they're having sex. And later found out that she was actually married to somebody, but just that person wasn't there. So he went crazy, got angry, and then he stabbed this person. And then basically he was like, arrested by the cops and all this stuff, right? But that was just kind of an interesting story. Like, it happened in my mobile home park, but like so many different weird things happen. Like, I had 2 tenants in my 20 unit where I think they did like some type of drug. I'm not sure what. I'm guessing it's mushrooms. And they basically did drugs together. And then they got a Sharpie and they just did a bunch of Sharpie art all over my freshly painted walls. And then I remember my park manager taking pictures of it, and the art looked actually kind of nice, ironically. But basically, I had to evict those tenants, and then I had to basically take the security deposit to then repaint the units. So when you own enough real estate, you see everything. You deal with people, you deal with people's lives. That's the joys of real estate, right? So those are the few that I kind of remember off the top of my head. But yeah, you see some interesting, crazy things that happen. People, I hate to say it, but tenants will lie to you. People will lie to you to get their way, right? And like I tenants tell me, "Oh, I'll pay you back. Don't worry about it." But in reality, most tenants, I hate to say it, are living paycheck to paycheck. So if they're 2,000, 3,000, $4,000 in the hole, their chance of paying you back is next to nothing, right? Or very slim. And if they really want to make an effort to pay you, they would give you small payments over time, right? Like that's why I say too. I'm like, well, if you owe someone $4,000, well, I don't want to give you $4,000 immediately. Maybe I'll pay you $500 a month over 8 months, right? So those are some of the horror stories I had. Um, Andrea said, if you can make that work, it's probably less headache and capex. Agreed. If I sold my 26 unit and paid off my property that's going to have ADUs, yeah, it would be a lot less headache, for sure. So definitely we'll consider it over the next 5 years. Tesla Rex, you got options. Being secure is important. Plan for the worst. Completely agree. I was definitely risk taking when I scaled my portfolio, but now that I've built up wealth, now that I have something to lose, I'm starting to get more conservative. Where I notice myself, my risk tolerance is going down, and I want to be more conservative. And it's because I know over the next 5 years, kids will be in the picture, and that's why I kind of went crazy scaling real estate, because I knew from like 30 to 35, I had no obligations, no kids, and this is the time for me to scale. Because I always tell people, are you gonna get busier or less busy as you age? You always get busier. Are you gonna have more obligations or less obligations as you get older? You're gonna have more obligations. As you get older, to your 40s, it's the sandwich years. You have kids to take care of, and your parents are getting old, and maybe they're not healthy, or maybe they have to go to a nursing home, or they're getting dementia. So like for me, I just knew from like 27 to 35 was my golden window to go all in and invest as much as possible, so that I won't regret it later, right? Because I know when I have kids and a family, like I can't do the things that I've done, take the risks that I've taken. I know that I cannot, maybe don't have as much time and energy to scale and go as fast as I've done, right? It's not to say that if you have kids and family, you can't scale to real estate. You just maybe can't go as fast, and you might have to go at a more conservative approach, right? So like I knew I just can go balls to the walls for the past 8 years, which I've done, but now it's time to like scale it back, right? So I was a hare in the first 8 years, and now I'm going to be a tortoise, right? So I don't regret everything that I've done, despite all the headache and the stress. That's just my personality. I hate to say it, but like I'm just the type to take action and then get slapped in the face, and I pivot and learn, right? And don't make the same mistake again. So that's why I document my journey, so that you guys don't have to get slapped in the face like me. I see here, LA is way overpriced. If you make 1 million, you take home 450. That's true. If I made 1 million in LA, I'd probably take home 50% is probably the tax rate. So yeah, but in my mind, if you make money, if you pay a lot of taxes, that means you're making good money. So take the good of the bad. Plan for kids can be very expensive. Totally agree. Yeah, I won't be as focused on real estate when I have kids. That's probably for sure. Probably can't put as much time and energy to do renovations of my apartments like what I did in the beginning, like where I was buying my 26 unit, renovate all the units, bought my 20 unit, renovate everything, bought a mobile home park, renovate everything. Like for me, I probably just want to do turnkey real estate, right? That's why I kind of like the idea of buying new builds in Oklahoma, in Alabama, and in California, right? Because it's just easier. Let's see, many ways to make money. Real estate sticks business IP. I see Jesus. Do you think Nevada will be a good place to purchase rentals with the way it's collapsing? So it's quite interesting. So Vegas, I remember looking at Vegas properties in 2015, and you can get the starter home was 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It was 250K. But now today, the same home is about half a million. I think the rents in Nevada aren't as strong, but yes, I think Vegas is getting hit hard because I think I forgot the statistic, but like Gen X and millennials like to gamble and drink and go to clubs. I think Gen Z, according to statistics, when I asked ChatGPT, so don't come at me angry, but according to ChatGPT, I think they said that like Gen Zs are drinking less, they don't like to gamble, and they're more focused on experience. So because of that, I think Vegas is like becoming less popular, less crowded, so it's losing money, which is maybe feeding into um, the way it's collapsing. But if you can buy the deal right, I always say that if you think, let's say the home is selling for 400K, if you think it's going to crash by 50% or 40%, then just offer 40% less right now. People will laugh at you, will say no, but once you make an offer, the ball's in their court. That's it. right? So if you think it's going to crash 40%, offer 40% less right now. It's called a disrespectful offer. One person will say yes if they're desperate or they don't care about the money. They just want to get rid of the headache, right? It depends on the person's motivation. Don't project your motivation to them. So yeah, I think you could, if you know Nevada well, you know the pockets well, you can buy it right, and you have a long term view. Real estate makes sense, right? In any market. Max, I was always surprised when I was a pharmacy tech that there were pharmacists age 23. I feel like the public would lose confidence in profession if it was widely known. Yeah, like, well, I was 23 when I graduated, and what didn't help me either is uh, I look on the younger end. On top of that, so definitely it does look bad. I used to get comments of like, "Oh, you look so young to be a pharmacist," but now that I'm 35, I don't get that anymore. I kind of miss that. They just look at me and you're like, "Okay, you look about right." Um, so yeah, but some pharmacists are 23. Tesla Rex, building a successful stock portfolio can be very good building, compounding, no moving parts, tenants, capex, liability, insurance. I completely agree. Like my $1 million stock portfolio, I don't even think about it. Honestly, I just dollar cost average it every single month. I max out my 401k, I max out my IRA, I max out my HSA. And if I have extra, I'll do brokerage. I max out my whole life insurance as well. All that goes into index funds. Super passive. Don't think about it. It's easy, right? Like I said it before, I may get to the point in like 10 years where I'm just saying, you know what? I'm screw real estate. I'm selling it all. I'm just going to dump it into index funds and then live off the 4% rule of, let's just say I own 5 million in stocks after all the taxes and whatnot, and live off that 4% of that. That's 200K a year of a paid off house. Like I can live comfortably with that, so it's always an option for me. And because I know that, that's why I went to real estate, because I figured I can make more from real estate than I do from stocks. And I have, but for easiness, completely agree. Like, I think Graham Stephan's doing that. He sold a lot of his properties in LA. He sold one in Santa Monica. I used to live near that property. And he just took it, and I think he just dumped it into like index funds or tax-free bonds in California, because he didn't want to deal with the headache anymore, right? Of tenants, toilets, liability, insurance, in that. XPeer Gaming. So your Jack and Jill properties will break even. So yeah, I bought 2 in Huntsville. I just completed the cash out refinance of Jack, which is my first property. And then once I pull that money out, I'm gonna pay for Jill. But I finally got my final numbers. So it appraised at 307K, which is the original purchase price. I bought it for about 256K. And I bought it all cash, so I got a discount. And I was able to pull out about 216K after all the expenses and the lending fees. So I left about $40,000 in the deal, which ends up being roughly around a 15 or 13% down payment on the property. And the PITI is about $700 a month or $1,700 a month. The HOA is about 30. It rents for 2150, property management 10%. So I have about $200 in net operating income, but in reality, that's just saved for capex, that's saved for vacancies, that's saved for a rainy day, right? So I call them break even on the deals. And then once I put money out of Jack, I need to put another $40,000 in, buy Jill, and then I'm probably gonna leave my money in Jill and own that free and clear. And then once it's rented out, since it's owned free and clear, and I'm not gonna pull the money out, it's gonna cash flow about, I think, $1,900 a month. So I'm gonna pull money out of Jack to pay for Jill, leave money in Jill, and keep it there until I need it to build my ADUs in California, whenever I decide to do that. So I call them break even. But like you said, if you're vacant for like 3 months, 4 months in that 1 year, you just lost all your cash flow for that year, right? But I'm banking on the fact that, I got 3-year leases on Jack. I hope Joe gets a 3-year lease. And, it's a new build property and I have warranty. So my CapEx should be very minimal. So I'm hoping that my reserve doesn't be as much. My only concern, to be honest, is the vacancy, right? Like if it takes some, 2-3 months to rent it out, that's when you lose money, right? So Austin, can you walk us through how you value your 58 units as 10 million in assets? So nothing too fancy here. I just use Zillow for my single family homes. So you just can go on Zillow. I know Zillow is not the greatest estimator, but I just base it off of Zillow to see what my single family homes are worth. For my 26 unit, I had it a lender give me their opinion of value. So they told me it's about 1.6 million. And then my 20 unit, I have it valued between 800 to 1 million, right? On that property. So really for single family, just Zillow. And then my multifamily, I kind of had it my 20 unit was valued based on the lender. And then my 20 unit um, also kind of based on the lender as well. So that's how I have $10 million in real estate, 5 million in debt, 5 million in equity. So, obviously if I pay off my whole portfolio, I'd be worth 10 million, but realistically for me, it's looking like I'm probably gonna sell some. So I'm gonna go less in real estate or less in, I guess, assets, but more in equity, right? So less debt, more equity. Tesla Rex, California is not landlord friendly, low cap rate, high prices, rent control, tenant friendly laws. Completely agree. Um, if you see Graham Stephan's video, he talks about how crazy the tenant laws are in Santa Monica. I agree. But California gets some crazy appreciation, but it has been stagnant since 2022, if I'm being honest. Like for the past 3 years, it's been super stagnant. Um, it hasn't really gone up, hasn't really gone down. But if interest rates drop, like to like I'd call it sub 5%, I think it's going to skyrocket again, right? Because I think California produces the most income, like the fifth largest producing GDP in the world because of all the tech and Hollywood and all that. So it's pros and cons. Like you said, like right now, um, my wife and I enjoy living in California, whether it's the Bay Area, whether it's LA. I'm enjoy living in LA, despite all the homeless and all the other issues that you have to deal with. It is nice in terms of doing stuff, but we may change our mind later, right? Like I may change my mind and maybe want to move somewhere cheaper, out of state, Vegas. I don't know. Max, yeah, rest in peace, Big Mama. Yeah, she will forever be remembered in my mind and in my real estate portfolio. So, when she paid rent, I got rent from everyone. When she didn't pay rent, um, no one else paid rent too. Or maybe they gave her rent, right? So Tesla Rex, imagine a 10 million stock portfolio, 8% compounding, reinvest dividends, add to it, no moving parts. Yeah, um, that does sound very lucrative, right? If you're living off 8% of 10 million, that is 800K, right? So like at that point, it's just, um, I don't think I can spend 800K, unless I'm just going on private yachts and airplanes. And I think I saw somewhere that if you're worth like $10 million, like you can get most of the benefits of being a billionaire besides owning a super yacht, besides owning like a super McMansion, and besides owning like a private jet. But you could fly, business class. You can maybe do little private jets. You can rent a yacht for a day. You could maybe live in a humble house, but maybe you could like rent a nice house, Airbnb a nice house for like a weekend. But they said that like if you're 10 million, you can have most of the benefits of being a billionaire without the headaches of being the billionaire. Right. So like my wife and I have kind of said, I think 10 million is kind of our stopping point where like we would start to like, um, start to basically take it easy. Right. Or don't worry about building wealth anymore. Just like enjoying life. Right. And we're almost there. I think between my wife and I, we're like about 8 million or close to 8 million, something like that. So we'll hit 2 million in probably 5 to 10 years for sure. Um, Barbecue, all new builds will be 20 years old later. What's the strategy then? Keep trading it for new ones. So that's a good question. For me, I'd hope that they still be good, right? Because most of my properties now are beyond 20 years old. Not too many issues, but if that's the case, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a 1031 exchange into a newer one again. Or if they're doing well, I own them free and clear, then why not keep it, right? So I don't know yet. I hope there's not much capex issues, but there are tornadoes potentially in Alabama. Um, but we'll see. Like I plan on keeping it, but yeah, if they become a headache, capex becomes an issue, they're not as desirable, then I'll probably sell it and trade up for newer ones, or sell it and just dump it in index funds. Um, Tesla, Vegas doesn't provide value hotel food events like Disney greed. If casinos, hotels fail, real estate will weaken, less renters. Yeah, I think things are too overpriced in Vegas, in my opinion. Like hotels are so expensive there, and just eating out, it's super expensive. So I think they gotta drop their prices if they want people to go. Like at this point in my life, like I don't really care to club as much, like in my 20s. And then like going to a nice, lounge is cool. Not for the drinks. The drinks are overpriced, but just more for the ambiance. But you don't have to do that every single day, right? But it's kind of funny, like if you know promoters and stuff, you can like do all the clubbing, you can do all the stuff at a discount or for free because if you go in early or if you have a bunch of girls with you, it's easy to get in. But yeah, it is harder. Like I'm not really into gambling. I feel like I'm gambling enough of my money in real estate. I don't need to gamble like at the slots or the casinos. Doesn't really give me any value there. Also, Tesla Rex, don't do the 4% rule. Let it run. You can get a line of credit against your securities if you need money. No tax on borrowed money. So no, I actually do have that. So through Charles Schwab, which is super nice, I can do up to 70% line of credit against my stock portfolio. So let's say you have $1 million of stocks and you do 70% of that. You have $700,000 that you can do as a line of credit. And I think the interest rates are typically lower than market, but still high. It's still like 8% or something like that right now. I think, what was it? I mean, 6 to 8%. Sorry, I forgot what it was off the top of my head. But that's what like the rich people do when money isn't an issue. Like I think like literally, isn't that how Elon Musk bought like Twitter? Um, he just took a line of credit against his Tesla stocks that he owned and then used that to go buy Twitter, right? So like, it's an option that people do because if you sell, you pay taxes. But for me, I don't want more debt. I want simplicity. So I don't mind just doing the 4% rule in my portfolio. But yes, if I don't, you know, if I could afford to, I could do a line of credit against it. So it's definitely an option that the rich use. But it is a form of leverage once again, right? Um, let's see. Um, Insurance keeps on going up. Property tax too, 2% compounded. Yes. So my insurance went up like crazy. Like on my 26 unit, at first it was 20,000. I had a replacement cost insurance. Um, so basically what that means is if my apartment burns down to the ground, they'll give me money to build a brand new unit from the ground up. Right. But as I thought about it, I was like, dude, I don't want to deal with like dealing with a burned down unit, clean up the land, and the deal of architects and build my new apartment over the next 3 years. When I realized that, I was like, why do I have replacement cost insurance? I'd rather get actual cash value insurance, which is the cheaper alternative. And what it does is if my property burns down, it doesn't give me enough money to rebuild the property from the ground up. What it does is it gives me enough money to pay off my loan and give me a little bit extra money to just clean up the land, sell the land, and then take the money and go somewhere else. Right. So it's really um, something that I've been thinking about. Right. It's that's why I went cheaper, but my replacement cost insurance literally went from um, what 20,000 to 25,000 to 30,000, and now since I switched to actual cash value, it's only $8,000. So literally, it's like one third the price. So that's why I kind of like kept my insurance. I used to get the best insurance replacement cost, but now I get actual cash value because you hope to not use insurance, right? That's the whole point of it. Um, Pure gaming, yeah, I would love. Oh, if Dave Ramsey went, he'd probably yell at me. Why would Dave Ramsey yell at me? Because I have leverage and I didn't do 15-year term loans, right? So he probably would yell at me. But I hope to get to his level one day, right? Without real estate, all their gains in the portfolio will be taxed. That means you only keep half the gains. So that is true. Owning real estate, I get depreciation. So it does offset that passive income. But what I'm hoping is that I live that 4% rule, and I do have whole life insurance, right? So whole life insurance, you can pull out the money as a loan, and that's tax free. Um, but even if you look at, I think the long term capital gains tax rate, I think for the first 0 to 100,000, or am I wrong? I think it's 0 to 100,000. It's been a while. 0 to 100,000. The tax rate is zero, I think, or is it 0 to 50? Someone check me, please. And then whatever from 100,000 to 500,000, I think it's like 10%, and then 500,000 to like and beyond, it's like 20%. So in a weird way, if it's truly 0 to 100K is 0% tax for at least federal for long-term capital gains tax, like that's pretty good. Like you can pull $100,000 almost tax-free federal. Probably have to pay California state tax, but still, it's not as much tax as you think. So I've kind of been researching that, thinking about that, but it's too far ahead for me, so I didn't really dive up that much time into it. But it's something that I've considered. So whatever income I make from real estate, obviously I have depreciation. So that's probably tax-free, and then you get to pay taxes on your 4% rule if you take it from portfolio, unless you do a line of credit against it, right? So those are your options. So Fidelity is around a 6.5% line of credit. Xperia Gaming, I got a 4.6% interest rate on my new build Lennar home near Houston, Texas. So yeah, I think Lennar, if you go through Lennar and you use their title company as well, they basically give you, I think those, 4.6%, but I think it's like an arm. I'm not sure if it's fixed, but it's like set for like maybe 7 years, 8 years, and it adjusts later. So that's why when I become a broker, I just want to sell Lennar homes because it's super easy, right? You can use Lennar. They have their title company. They give you a 1-year warranty on the interior. They give you a 5-year warranty, the 10-year warranty on the exterior, and they'll buy down your interest rate. They'll give you builder credits, and you own a new asset. And yeah, it's just super easy to deal with, right? So if you can lock in a 4.6%, you can lock that in for 30 years. You're good. You don't need to do anything else with that. So that's something that why I want to sell Lennar homes, right? After buying 3, I was like, I need to start selling these homes. So if you want to buy in California, Oklahoma, Alabama, in about 3 months from Lennar, consider me, right, as an option. So approaching that hour mark, thank you everyone for hopping on. I want to give a plug for my school community. If you want to check that out, there's a free trial. I try to do Q&As. If you want to actually talk to me and see me in person versus a chat, I do that about once a week. It's $30 a month. It's a free trial of $30 a month. Check that out. If you want courses and coaching, I did lower the price of my course recently to make it more affordable for everybody who wants to research real estate and learn about multifamily real estate and do what I did, buying small multifamily out of state. If you want to get a quote for your insurance on your rental property, single family home, duplex, triplex, fourplex, click on my Steadily link. You can get a free quote. Takes about 2 minutes, and you can see if your current policy is better, or maybe you can save money. I switched 3 of my policies over to Steadily, and I saved about, I think, $2,000 collectively. And if you want to use my lender, Lending One, also a link there. Send me email. My email is also my link tree, right? So just click on the links as all my links. Question here, pop in last minute. SKREI. What to buy 50 plus units? Appreciate from California properties. So what helped me scale to 50 plus doors was I bought house hacks in California. I got up to 3 house hacks in California. I bought one in 2017, 2019, and 2020. What happened from 2017 all the way until present day, 2019 to present day, 2020 to present day? COVID happened. When COVID happened, all my properties went up by $500,000 each, right? I think my first property was worth 800. It's worth 1.4 today. My second property I bought for 1.1. I think it's worth about 1.5 today. My third property I bought for 750. It's worth about 1.2 today. So when it went up in value, what did I do? I leveraged. When COVID happened, I did a huge cash out refinance. I pulled out a bunch of money tax free, lowered my interest rate to 3% or less. Pulled out a lot of money tax free and used that to go buy my apartments in Oklahoma. So I used that to buy my 26 unit, I bought my 20 unit, and I bought my mobile home park, right? But what happened when you leverage that much is that my loan payment is higher. So my California real estate portfolio is cash flow negative because I have a bigger debt payment. Do you get less cost if you go to lender Ameritrust directly instead of broker Convoy? So that's a good question. So if I use Ameritrust again for Jill, I'm probably just going to go straight to Ameritrust. I think Convoy, you have to pay them a brokerage fee of about $4,000 is the fee that they listed on my settlement statement. Most likely that's what I'm going to do. But from my experience, the broker is supposed to help you get a lower interest rate because what lenders do, like Ameritrust, they will bulk sell loans over to Convoy, and then Convoy will use their Rolodex of clients to then bring over to them, and hopefully the interest rate should be lower. But no, for my next property, Jill, I'm probably gonna go straight to Ameritrust. I'm gonna use Lending One, and I have a guy I'm recently connected with where he's a loan broker as well, who specializes in rental property. So I'm gonna go through him as well and see. But if you can avoid a broker, they'll save you about 4 to 5 thousand bucks. Typically, brokers will charge you $4 or $5 thousand on top of everything else. So it did cost me more money to use Convoy, but if they can introduce you to a great lender, then it's totally worth it. But for the second one, I can just go straight to Ameritrust directly. I'll probably do Ameritrust directly. I'll do Lending One, and then I'll probably engage another broker to see if he can find me another lender that's good, right? So it's you pay a broker in hopes that they find you and connect you with strong lenders so that you can use them, next time and save money. But yes, it did cost me more money by using Convoy versus going straight to Ameritrust, which I will the second time around. So, anyways, hopefully you guys like these lives. Let me know what topics you want me to discuss. I'm an open book. Um, and I want to talk about whatever. I want to mix it up. Whatever you guys want me to talk about, totally open to it. See the last question here. Do lenders do 1% point as well in origination fee? Yes, they did. So Ameritrust did. So my total closing cost was about 13K. Right. So 4,000 of that went to Convoy, and then 9,000 went to prepays, origination fees, underwriting fees, service fees. So yeah, the loan amount was the expense was a little bit higher than I would have liked, but because I had a broker involved, right? So it cost me 4,000 extra. Most of them was around $8,000 while getting quoted. So you live and you learn. So anyone, have a good weekend or have a good night, and hope to see you the next one. Thank you so much, everyone. Peace.